Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and this is the Road to the Record, where I work to achieve mastery of 10 games and a hunt for the best score of the Decathlon. If you like what you see, remember to hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. Let the games begin. This is F1 2018. And this is week 50 of competition. We are in Brazil, and afterward we're going to be heading on to the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi. So we wrap up the season today. Big change coming. After scoring a 10th place finish, I add one more to the AI difficulty level, and now hitting 90 and master class. That does mean, by my rules, I am down to a single flashback per race, and that's scary. I'm gonna start seeing some DNFs in the coming season, if not before then. I've still got 2 races left in this season. Yet again, 2 new parts added to the car, this time brakes with new pad material, and a weight reduction with cockpit padding. With that, the chassis continues to outshine the rest of the parts. Of course, that's the one department that I focused heavily on this year. I've prepared myself for aerodynamics improvement next season, but with an aerodynamics reset this year, I'm not going to do anything here in these final 2 races regarding that. But let's go ahead and head to the tree and see what can be done this week on the chassis. Here's the 2 new additions, the pad material, the cockpit padding, and with those 2 improvements, we have overtaken all 3 of the big teams to go top in the chassis department, and we now have full view of the entire tree, and we can see there are a number of major upgrades still to do, but only a few small upgrades left. So what do we have left? We have a big brakes upgrade, we have a big weight reduction upgrade, and those are ultimate upgrades, both of them. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3 tire wear upgrades, 4 tire wear upgrades here, with 1 ultimate, 1 major, and 2 minors. We have another minor brake upgrade. And then down here at the bottom, we have the hydraulics now. So what does that leave? Fuel tank positioning, so weight redistribution, and then another brakes one. So quite a few brakes upgrades, a few tire upgrades, and only a couple of weight reduction upgrades left. And so in terms of weight, that seems to be the big area that I've made the most improvement on, as we've got a car that's pretty much lighter than everybody else now. We've just started on the brakes upgrades, and then we've only done a single tire wear upgrade so far. Now, looking at everything we've got here, I think I'm only going to do a single upgrade this week with the heavy dampers, the tire wear. And then next week, before the final race, or after next week's race, before we get into the end of season, we will make a couple of these major upgrades. We've got an ultimate that's going to cost $920. Here is another ultimate, so we're going to need close to 2,000 points for those. So I will want to store some points away for that, but I've got 2 weeks, and I should be able to expect to get another 2,600 points or so. And that's 2,000. So kind of what I have now might be the last of the spending I do for this season, but with only that single upgrade, that leaves me a little bit more in the air department. Of course, this area is going to be reset, so I'm just trying to finish off the quality control And this will get us wind tunnel control number 4. And then we've got that one last one. And I might still go for that here this season and use 900 points for that, just so that when the new season starts, I'm immediately ready to hit the ground running on the aero department, as aerodynamically, I'm terrible. Looking at that, we are last by quite some margin when it comes to aerodynamics. So a quick look at the progress history kind of across the board. We are now yet again ahead of Toro Rosso, as they did overtake us last week after some major upgrades of their own. We've closed in a bit more on Sauber and McLaren, that both had, looks like, a single minor upgrade, while we had 2. Haas makes a big jump this week and have nearly reached Red Bull, who have been pretty light on their upgrades for quite some time. Going all the way back to France in week 8, they've only done upgrades, 4 times? And 3 of those have been a single minor upgrade. Of course, Red Bull have a really good aero package, and to cover that, they could have invested a lot of points, as far as I know. Just 2 races left as we head to Interlagos. When you visit Interlagos, rain seems to always be a factor, and it was during practice. Practice sessions 2 and 3 both saw some rain, though I was able to avoid and finish up what I needed to do in the 3rd session without having to deal with the rain. I never saw the track after the rain came back. My dry setup certainly did not work in the rain, which is no surprise, and I did not go for a wet setup because we're looking like a dry qualifying and race condition.
Welcome to qualifying here in Interlagos, as the cars are readying up for what's likely to be a very important session.
As I head into qualifying, I've put together a qualifying pace, a fast lap, successfully only twice in all of practice. So I can maybe pull it together and get just out of Q1, but definitely not out of Q2. But I have a feeling I could be out here in Q1 unless I replicate that for a 3rd time. I'm at the end of my first lap here. I've just about compromised Hamilton's lap, but I've given myself at least a decent lap. Get out of the way here. In P10 at the moment, but there's a lot of cars that have not put in a time yet, as I already dropped to P11 just here in the last couple seconds. Head back to the garage, see where we're at. Back in the garage now, 10 minutes left in the session. Currently P13, Van Dorn and Sorokin, neither one has put in a time
great job. We're
yet.
much higher up the field than we expected to be.
Okay, getting pretty late in my lap here, and I am well up on my time from before, so I will find some more pace here. I've pushed it a lot harder than I have in other laps.
We have 2 laps of fuel remaining.
And that puts us up to P12. I think that's going to be enough to see us into Q2. Close call. We squeeze in P15, so Sorokin is out nearly a second behind me. Good 0.8 down. The Toro Rosso's just ahead of him. Ericsson and Van Dorn, the other ones that are out. I come in 2 milliseconds behind Hulkenberg, but I do see my way into 15th, about 1/10 of a second ahead of Van Dorn. Ricardo, and it looks like Verstappen, actually both, they ended up going back out on super softs to get out of Q1. They tried to go on the softs, but did not do enough. They would have been eliminated had their time stood. Bottas and Raikkonen did successfully get through on the soft tires, though, with Hamilton and Vettel the top two. Alright, I'm going to use set of tires here to start Q2, and this actually feels like maybe the best lap that I've ever run here. So even though I'm going to lose about a tenth of a second for being on used tires, I've made a really, really good time. And that is Valtteri Bottas, who's ahead of me. And you can tell right here at the end, he is not pulled away from me. He's got a little more pace than I do here, but this is a pretty decent time. Going up towards the end of my second run, I'm up just slightly on my time. It's probably not going to be enough to get out of the session, but it could get me up another spot or two in the grid. 2.5 tenths. That's P9 at the moment. P9 at the moment. I actually have a chance to get out, but with the session just about over, I could see those times fall away a bit more. I still think I might be only down around P11 or P12. I'll head back to the garage. And there it is, P13. So Hamilton, Raikkonen fastest of the session. Magnussen, Grosjean, myself, Leclerc, and Alonso are out. A 1:10.2 flat for me was an excellent time. That was a couple tenths of a second better than where I was at. Best time that I've run, but it was still not enough to get out of the session. I was just 3 milliseconds behind Grosjean and both Haas cars, but I do end up getting ahead of all of the Saubers, the McLarens, the Toro Rossos, and my teammate.
Where there's a will, well, there's a way. And nowhere has that fact been better demonstrated over the years than here at Interlagos. Remember Senna winning while fighting a gearbox that was jammed in 6th? 5 Drivers' Championship deciders in a row between 2005 and 2009. And of course, the passion of Brazilian fans packing the grandstands to capacity every year. And they're not about to stop now. Interlagos, always a very special race here in Brazil. It's a 2.7-mile circuit with 9 lefts and 6 rights for a total of 15 corners. The fastest lap today should have an average speed of around 135 miles per hour, if, of course, the weather stays dry until the end of the Grand Prix. Anthony Davidson joins me again for the race today. Now I want to ask you about Daniel Ricciardo. They've had to change their gearbox. It's never a good start to a Grand Prix when, right off the bat, you have to contend with a grid penalty.
Fingers crossed that's one failure they won't have to worry about today at least. There's not much of a silver lining to starting down the field with a penalty, but I think they'll be able to make some of that back up over the course of the race.
Well then, after an exciting qualifying session yesterday, let's take a look at how the cars line up. Sebastian Vettel has a clear track ahead of him today. He starts in pole position, and Kimi Raikkonen completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hülkenberg, Ocon, Sergio Perez, and Magnussen, Hamilton, the Professor, Bottas, and Fernando Alonso, Van Dorn, Ricciardo, Brendan Hartley, and Gasly, Sainz. They've taken a grid penalty. Leclerc, Sergei Sirotkin, and Max Verstappen. Grosjean and Marcus Ericsson rounds off the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's go down to the track.
You should have some space going into the first corner, so try to keep it tidy.
Alright, so it looks like I'm in for an interesting one. They've already got me set up for starting on the softs, which I like. It looks like we could make the super softs last 9 laps and be ever so slightly faster, so we'll do that. We'll pit at the halfway point. Fuel, not the easiest to save here actually, so I'm going to put a little bit of extra fuel on board. 19 laps worth, or actually 28 kilograms worth, a little bit more, so that does slow me down some, but it's not the easiest track to pass on. for one thing. And I'm starting way up the grid from where I should be, way up, for another. And I expect to go backwards. Now, here's the thing about this race. I fear, and I've feared this before, if you've watched every episode of the series thus far, this isn't the first time where I've really worried that I will end up with a DNF. There's been at least a couple other tracks, and really a few other tracks, where I've feared the same thing, and this is one of those. I will definitely be taking it easier to try to stay alive, but if I'm losing a second a lap because I'm driving a little bit easier, it means I'm going to get passed a lot, and I shouldn't finish anywhere near the top 10. But with that, we'll do our best. We'll get through what I can. I only have one flashback at my disposal now. After finishing 10th last week, my AI difficulty is now at master level, so 90 and above. So for the series, my rule, one flashback until I get up to 100 difficulty, where it becomes 0 flashback and it's turned off entirely. So with that, we're at Interlagos in Brazil, Sao Paulo. The penultimate race of the season. Constructors already gone to Mercedes. The Drivers' Championship still to be decided, and potentially could be decided today. Which I'm not in contention, by the way. I'm in 13th for that. Alright, well, with that, better late than never. Let's get things started. 5 red lights. And we're going racing. Alright, that's a pretty good start. From P8 on the grid, I'm to the inside already. And there is a touch, but I'm up to P5 at the moment. And light contact with Perez twice. I do pick up a warning for that. Perez now coming back at me here. But that is an excellent start to this race as I am in P5 here, heading into Sector 2 on lap number 1.
Okay, that's a good start. Keep it up.
Excellent clean start to the race for me. There's one of my tricky spots here. As I come around that corner, I've lost traction multiple times and hit the interior wall. So I've got to be really, really careful of that. Ocon making a look to the inside on Hulkenberg. I was so busy watching them that I missed turn 1 myself. And here comes Perez. He's probably going to get me this time. Not much I could do to stop him. He's got to the inside. There's a touch. He pushes me aside. And he's not there. He's not there. He spun himself out, hitting me on the inside. I gave him enough racing room.
Yellow flag.
Ooh. Big oversteer. Had to get off the gas there to save it. One of my weak points. There's about 3 spots on the track where I will get that snap of oversteer from time to time, and that's where I will likely have my flashback occur, as one of those times it's gonna put me in the wall. And a big trick is gonna be whether I can keep it down to 1 for the whole race. And I'm just not sure I can. Here we are, P5. Hamilton now the one behind me. He's closing in pretty quick, and with DRS he'll get me this lap if he doesn't get me before. There's some oversteer right there. That's the one where I'm not too worried about the oversteer. Alright, here goes Hamilton and Bottas coming by. Still there, Hamilton. There's a little touch. He actually parked it.
Lost the position. Try to keep focus.
He parked it, and I touched him a little bit, but luckily no damage. That's P6 now. Bottas taking a look to the inside. He's still there. He's still there. No, he's going to tuck back in behind me. Not really racing him. I will let him go. But I don't want to compromise my race while I'm at it. That's one of the spots where I will get oversteer from time to time as you snap out of that corner. Alright, here comes Bottas. I'll stay to the inside, let him have the outside. There he goes. Alright, so that's P7. P7 here on lap number 4. This is an excellent start to the race for me. There was no way that I was going to beat those Mercedes, so I don't mind one bit letting them go. And the beautiful thing for me is I just pick up DRS. That's going to help me stay ahead. There's a big gap between me and Van Dorn behind now. So if I can run well for a while here, this would be a good opportunity.
Reduce ERS deployment.
Oh, yeah, I need to adjust that still. I'm going to need a straightaway, though, to get it done. Ooh, massive oversteer there. That's a spot where I don't normally get it. That cost me at least a second.
Gap to car in front is 2.5 seconds.
Alright, still have the gap behind me though, and it's actually a huge gap, so... Right now I've got that best of the rest status, and I'm hanging on to it, which is such a surprise because this is not a good track for me. But I had such a good start to the race, and then I think it was Perez, right? Perez who got to the inside, and it was right here, turn 4, and he had racing room. I was not tight to the apex, but he ended up clipping my side pod and turned himself around. He pulled a Sebastian Vettel with that one, who's done that multiple times this season, and around he went. I think it may have collected another car as well. We certainly had yellows for a while, so it wasn't right back on the track. Alright, so the Mercs are gone. No surprise there, I just do not have their kind of pace. Ooh, almost had the oversteer there. That's a danger point for me. Still clear behind on the mini-map. Ricardo has just overtaken Van Dorn right here on the front stretch. 15 seconds ahead of my teammate. Woo. That is good for me. That is good for me, especially as I strongly feared that I would be nowhere near the top 10 in this race. And we're a third of the way through the race now, and I still have my flashback. Thought I saw yellow there in Sector 2 just as I was leaving it, entering Sector 3, so it's possible somebody further back in the grid has had contact or spun out. Ooh, there's a big mistake there. Carried too much pace through there. Ricardo's coming up on me now.
Okay, gap ahead is 6.5 seconds.
Ricardo and others. He has not gone well clear. I'm staying to the inside. Let him have the outside.
We're approaching the pit window. You'll be on the super softs.
He locks up and he turns me around. He turns me around. There goes my flashback. Ricardo locked up and turned into me. He didn't give me any racing room. We were side by side. He had a nose on me, but we were side by side. I was good. I stayed all the way to the inside of the apex. I I had a tire on the edge of the grass, and he still turned into me and forced me off. There was nowhere for me to go. I was under full braking, so it's not like I could have just let him through. I was letting him through. There goes my one and only flashback, thanks to Daniel Ricciardo. It's been that kind of season for him in real life. Yes, the unlucky side of it. This time I tuck in behind because I'm not going to take the chance that he's going to do it to me again.
Come on, you can win that place back.
Oh, I can't. Here comes Van Dorn. This is the one that I'm worried about. Sainz and Van Dorn. To the inside. I get to the edge. And I just about hang on to it for now. Still getting that little snap of oversteer there. That's where I lost that time. I lost a good second and a half last time. This time it was just that hint of oversteer, which was weird because that was not a spot that I was having that problem in practice at all. All those laps and the areas where I had it was definitely not there. So I've pulled back away, but here comes Van Dorn trying to close me down. He may be more than a second down. No, he's only a half a second down, so... Van Dorn's got to run. He's got to the inside. Braking late. I got the outside. Oh, he didn't give me enough room there. I ended up having to get off the wheel a little bit, and that forced me off the edge of the track. So Van Dorn gets his elbows out and pushes me aside. At least I avoided the contact, but that's Van Dorn into P7. That's me down to P8. And I think one car has pit. So I think virtually I'm down to P9, I believe. Van Dorn puffs of smoke here. He might have a problem. Like as he's getting on the gas, like he might have a problem with second gear or something. Engineer hasn't said anything, but...
Lap. Give us the best in lap you can.
Alright, so I'm back around Van Dorn there. Van Dorn's getting his run again, though. He is to the inside. Let him go. Couldn't get the switch back, though. I couldn't quite get on the gas yet. We were too close. Bad run through there. My tires are starting to... Well, I don't think it's my tires. I think my tires are just fine. I'm getting dirty air here. This close behind Van Dorn.
Vettel's in first place.
Vettel currently leading the race here. A big moment coming up here as I need to pit this time. I'm not very good on the pit entrance here. This is a difficult pit lane. Van Dorn's coming in too, I think? No. Yes, he is. Woo-hoo-hoo, that was close. Okay, I did lose a little time. At least half a second. I nearly hit the wall there. I'm getting held up. All sorts of traffic coming into the pits. And Van Dorn back out in front, so I don't lose anything there, but I certainly did.
Pit strategy complete. See these tires through to the end now.
And this is also a very difficult pit exit. This is about the most difficult one on the entire calendar. And I lost at least a second there, as Van Dorn has gotten away from me. And I've got a Red Bull right behind me. It's Verstappen. Whoa! And there it is.
What happened? Let me know you're okay.
There's that oversteer that comes out of nowhere and gets me from time to time. And that's a DNF. So running inside the top 10 and just coming around the corner, I didn't even touch the curb. I wasn't any harder on the gas than any other time, but you're on the gas through there. So you're flat out and gradually turning. And I just lost the grip. That's it. We are out of this race. I have no flashbacks left. So just like that, unforced error, just momentary loss of traction, no chance to save it. I mean, I went straight into the wall. I didn't even feel it coming. And that's it. We retire from the race. That is my first career DNF. It looks like we've got Kimi Räikkönen as the race winner.
They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs. And that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, and to stay out of trouble.
So
it's such a good race up until that point.
Wherever you go, anywhere in the world, the prancing horse flags are dominant in the grandstands,
So
and they're out in
Räikkönen,
today.
Vettel,
Ferrari on the
and
top
Hamilton,
step
top
once
three.
more.
See what that does to the Drivers' Championship. I definitely don't think it's been settled today, but it's going to be very, very tight at the top.
So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. Well, the gap at the top of the championship has been cut down after a difficult race today for our championship leader. Now then, Anthony Davidson, who was your driver of the day?
It's got to be Romain Grosjean. He was in another league for me today. Really impressive.
The Constructors' title
P8
may
from
already
19.
be decided. But, meanwhile, good work from Force India this weekend, who pushed themselves further up the order. Well, what a weekend that has been. Please join us next time for another thrilling instalment of this Formula One season.
With a single race left to do, which means 25 points maximum, Valtteri Bottas has a pretty good shot at winning the Drivers' Championship. If Hamilton wins the race, he'll pick up 25 points, which means Bottas is going to need 12. Let's see, you get 18, 15, and 12, so 4 would make them level. So a podium for Bottas while Hamilton wins would be enough. If Hamilton doesn't win, he's going to have to finish in either second or third, and Bottas either get nothing or close to that depending on the position. Like Hamilton could take second and Bottas 9th, and that would be enough, right? Or 8th even. Of course, constructors already decided. Let's go ahead and take a look at the race standings. So Räikkönen wins, Vettel second. They were close behind. Hamilton and Bottas, remember they came from further down the grid as they both had grid penalties. Ocon takes 5th. Great performance from him. Ricciardo takes 6th. Now, for me, Ricciardo was the deciding factor in this race. I told you before we started, and during the first couple of laps, that guaranteed at some point I would have that oversteer and wouldn't be able to save it. To me, the big question was whether I could keep it to just once. Well, it happened just once. But Ricciardo came across me on turn 1. He locked up and then still came across the track and forced me off. Spun me out, put me into the wall. So, to me, Ricciardo's the deciding factor because I was over halfway through that race before that one time happened. And I was on fresh tires that were just 1 lap old. So they would have been good and heated up, and I was really surprised that that happened. Or was that just as I came out of the pits? cold tires still? Or was that a lap later? Ooh, now I'm curious. I'm going to have to look back at that. But anyway, I do pick up my first DNF, so this is going to be bad. Sorokin, amazingly, is the next one. Well, not amazingly, because we're always at the back of the grid. But he was only just over a minute. He was second and a half behind Ericsson. Alonso all the way down in P17. Ericsson had to stop twice, so that explains a bit. He did start from last place. And Perez, after colliding with me on the opening lap, ends up down in P14. Yeah, I get the warning first on Perez, but later in the lap, it's Perez who did collide with me and spun himself out. So I had to touch a couple turns earlier. Perez comes back. It was, turn 2 where I touched Perez? Turn 4, Perez takes himself out, colliding with me. Ricardo never even got a warning from when he... Oh, that's right. I used the flashback so it wouldn't appear. But there you go. DNF. My first. Alright, well, we've got plenty of time, especially with that, to get in the second race and the final race of the opening season in this Road to Glory series. And so we're going to head to Abu Dhabi.
Bad luck out there today. What do you think went wrong? Not the best way to end a race. What went wrong?
It was Aero. They're not going to be happy, but they'll forget by the end of next season. So, sorry, Aero
Do you have
department.
any comments about the collisions?
Again with the downforce. I'm dissing on the
Appreciate
Aero
your
department
time.
today. Claire's happy for the interview, at least. Alright, so we're going to head into Abu Dhabi. I'll see you at qualifying. As we head into that next race weekend, we do have that new upgrade, the tire wear. The heavy dampers is ready and going onto the car. Weather, looking dry for the weekend. Of course, it's Abu Dhabi, so it's always that. But quick look at the development upgrades. Heading into the final race, amazingly, as most cars would not have an upgrade at this point in time, both Toro Rosso and Sauber have major upgrades ready heading into this week, where even though we improved, Toro Rosso shot past us, and Sauber, who we were just about to catch, shoots up way up the grid, well ahead of McLaren, and nearly catch Force India at this point. So we are going to finish the season where we started, with the worst car on the grid. But one good thing that I can really say about the long term is that with all of the department upgrades in the chassis and now the aero department, we will make progress, just in the way that our chassis went from worst to first just before the end of the season. I'm not sure if it's still there now. Yes, it is. We went from worst to first because of those department upgrades. Now, the aero department, again, I've invested a ton of points into the department itself. You don't see that on the car. But in the chassis, you can see just how effective it is in the long term, especially when we're coming to the end of Season 1, and there are 9 seasons left. We are 1 or 2 seasons away from having this car totally maxed out and going as fast as it can possibly go.
Here we are at the beautiful Yas Marina circuit where qualifying is about to begin. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the action.
All right, so entering qualifying here. Throughout the practice session, I've got a good handle on the car. I only turned it around a single time. That was doing a qualifying sim where I was really, really pushing it, and I knew I was pushing it too hard. I would have let off normally, but I pushed it, and the car didn't hold. So that's not something I would do in the race itself. So I'm confident that we can get through this thing in one piece. Now it's all about where I'll end up positioning, and I'm not too sure. It looks like pace-wise I'm going to be towards the back. After a relatively poor start to my first flying lap here in Q1, Sector 2 was actually really good, and Sector 3 not too shabby. This is going to definitely be towards the back though this time. Currently P8, but we are still just at the beginning of qualifying, so I'm going to head back to the garage. After the first lap, I'm down to P17. And go out for one more try. 17 was actually right where I was in practice.
So far, our fastest lap is a 1:38.6.
So I picked up 0.3 of a second in Sector 1, and until late in Sector 3, I was still kind of right about there. I ended up picking up exactly half a second overall as I got the other 0.2 on the final sector. With that, I'm up into P13, and that'll be the last lap that I run, so I'll head back to the garage. We'll see if that's enough. I'm not sure it's going to be, so I could be out here in... And sure enough, I finished exactly where I was expected to in P17, with Van Dorn last, Sorokin ahead of him, Ericsson in 18th. This is the first time in a long time that Sorokin's been outside of 20th, but I will be starting from P17 in this one with Hartley in front. Fastest laps here in Q1 go to Vettel with Bottas, Raikkonen, Hamilton all the way down in P6. Everybody on the Hypersofts.
So here we are, ready to go racing for one final time this year. Another season of victories, controversies and rivalries lies in our wake. And just one challenge remains here in the United Arab Emirates on a circuit that made its spectacular debut back in 2009. Welcome to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Yas Marina Circuit then, a 3.4-mile racetrack built on the entirely man-made Yas Island. It features 21 corners and 2 very long straights. These are our main overtaking chances today, with DRS assistance of course. And that action will take place into turn 8 and turn 11. So before the off, let's remind ourselves of yesterday's qualifying session with a look at the starting grid. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, with Sebastian Vettel starting alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Bottas, Ricciardo, Sergio Perez, and Verstappen, Leclerc, Grosjean, Hülkenberg, and Esteban Ocon, Sainz, Alonso, Kevin Magnussen, and Gasly, Hartley, Raikkonen, the Professor, and Marcus Ericsson. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Sirotkin and Stoffel Van Dorn completes the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Let's aim for a strong finish to the season.
Literally no change to the rankings at the bottom for the grid, even though there were penalties all over the place. I start exactly where I qualified in P17, as all 3 cars that were behind me all pick up grid penalties, meaning they're carrying some new parts, and they're going to have even more pace than they had before. Now, I think I'm going to be better off on the Ultrasofts first. And let's see. 0.038. We'll go 7 each. I wasn't very good at fuel saving here, so I need some extra. Let's get it up to 30k, especially if I'm going to start slow anyway at the back. I want to save up some fuel for later in the race. Alright, so I only get the one flashback, of course, and that could be a problem as I did just have my first DNF in the season in Brazil. I could be in for another one here. This is a difficult circuit, but I've got good control of the car. I haven't been having oversteer issues or anything like that. This is more about contact with other cars. So finding some clean air and getting on my own, and from there running a clean race. I can do that. I can definitely get to the end of this one. I could potentially get there without any flashbacks whatsoever, but we'll see. That depends on the clean race part. But with that, starting from the back of the grid, we're ready to go racing. Final race of the season, and there is a championship on the line. The Drivers' Championship, down to Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton. Bottas is in the driver's seat. He's got a 13-point lead. But Hamilton on pole, Bottas starting from third. If they finish where they start, Bottas wins the championship by 2 points. With that, let's get those lights up and let's get to the race. We're ready to go racing here. Last race of the season. It's Hartley in front of me. Little bit of tire slip, but I still get a decent start out of it. Raikkonen there to the inside. Got to check out a second time. I end up losing the spot to Ericsson as he didn't have to. Oh, it's Sorokin. Why did you stop? And there's damage to the car already. That was not a necessary stopping point for Sorokin at all there. And now my teammate takes me out of this one. I got to the inside of Ericsson. I'm back up to P17 where I started. But with that damaged wing, bound to have troubles. What's the strategy? A new wing, go on super softs? Okay, we're gonna do it because this is a aerodynamics heavily track, which is why my car is gonna struggle. Ooh, I just got turned from behind. Sorokin again! You've got to be kidding me. Sorokin twice has taken me out. That was intentional. Ooh, I just got turned from behind again. This time it's Van Dorn.
Your front wing is damaged. Expect a lot of understeer unless we replace it.
Wow, that's 4 collisions. One by me. One on purpose by me. Because my teammate slammed into me twice, pulling a Sergio Perez. And we're going to head to the pits now and try to make this a one-stopper. Alright, so I've got some fuel saved up, but I'm going to be way behind everyone here. The beautiful thing is I'm going to have nothing but clean air. Wing is secured, and away I go. Might as well just go standard here. I've already got a good amount of fuel saved up.
That was our last stop. No more scheduled pit stops.
Alright, well, it only took 1 lap, but we've already finished our pit stops for the day after my teammate slammed into me twice. Van Dorn slammed into my gearbox once. And I gave just a little payback to Sorokin just to let him know how I felt about his actions. So, terrible, terrible first lap. Like I said, for me, this race was going to come down mostly to whether I can get into some clean air or not. Fortunate thing was I did get through that at least without any flashbacks. Of course, I've lost time, but not a lot. I was still right there with the guys when that happened. But I'm going to be on my own here for probably 4 or 5 laps or so before everyone begins to run through their sequence of pits, and then we'll see where I'm at that point. Coming to the end of lap number 5 here, and the first of the back markers are heading for the pits. And Alonso is out of the race, so there's one position I'll get.
The car ahead is 42.1 seconds.
Alright, so I'm finally coming up on Alonso. Here he is.
Caution, caution.
So there's one position.
Green flag.
Leclerc is still well in front of me, but he was not a true back marker, so it looks like this next lap or so I should be starting to get these cars that I'll be a little bit closer off to. And we'll see if I can reach anyone. It's Rockin' is into the pits. Here's my chance. We'll see just how close I can get to him after this. My gap was 23 seconds. It is not that any longer. See, there they are. There's the grid. I am still at the back of the grid, though. So that's the downside there, is I have not had enough pace to actually catch anyone just yet. But I'm not too far behind. It is still possible. My problem being that I'm on
The
the...
car ahead has come in to put on the ultra soft tyre. Car ahead is now running ultra softs.
There's my problem. I'm 2 tire compounds below, and what, 6 laps? 7 laps? His are fresher than mine, so good luck for me to actually catch anyone. The only way I move up any more spots is if it's because of a DNF, or an extra pit stop, or somebody has some sort of problem.
We have 5 laps of fuel remaining.
As I start my final lap,
Final
the
lap
leaders
of
are
the
going to be to the end of their final lap here in a moment. So we'll look to see who the champion is, or if it's one of Mercedes anyway. Hamilton really needs to win if he is going to take the championship. It's not the only scenario in which he wins, but it's the best scenario for him. Hamilton has done it. He's won the race. Now this all comes down to his teammate Valtteri Bottas and his finishing position. If Bottas has finished second or third, Bottas is still the champion. If Bottas is fourth or lower, Lewis Hamilton will be your champion. So has he stolen it on the final day of the season? We'll find out here in a little bit. They're really just kind of waiting on me to finish now. Most of the rest of the grid has already crossed. I'm more than 10 seconds behind Van Doren. And here we go. We're going to take the checkered flag for the final time this season. It's only good for P19.
Just wasn't our day today.
But who is the driver's champion? Find out here in a moment as they celebrate.
Celebrations begin.
And it's Bottas. Bottas has hung on.
It may have looked simple at times, but as any racing driver will tell you, competing at this level, at the very top, is anything but simple. There's no catching them now then. We have a new World Drivers' Champion.
So Bottas hangs on to a top 3 finish.
Victory for the Silver Arrows. So, Ant, how exactly did they set themselves apart from the pack today?
Well, time management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
Bottas won this championship in the first half of the season because that is where Lewis Hamilton struggled. Lewis Hamilton was well
This
down
round of the World
the standings.
Championship, here's how things look in the drivers' table. This also means that there's no catching our leader anymore, and we crown a new World Drivers' Champion. Moving on to the driver of the day then. Anthony Davidson, who would you go for?
Well, I have to
Raikkonen.
give it to Kimi Raikkonen. Consistency, good battle, sensible driving. He can be pleased with that performance today.
It may already be wrapped up, but let's look at the constructors' standings. It was also a strong Grand Prix from Haas F1 this weekend. Fantastic work from the American team to move themselves further up the table. That's it for today's Grand Prix, and from Ant and I, it's goodbye, and see you again next time.
Alright, so Hamilton wins the day, but he only picks up 10 points over Bottas, so he's going to finish just behind him in the championship. We'll look at that in a moment. Sebastian Vettel sandwiched between them in second, Ricciardo 4th, Raikkonen 5th after starting in 16th, with Grosjean and Leclerc a solid top 10 finish there in 7th. In real life, Leclerc, of course, moving on to Ferrari next year, replacing Raikkonen, who we finished a couple spots behind. Verstappen down in 8th, Ocon in 9th, and Hülkenberg in the run-out, rounding out the points-paying positions. Magnussen just missing out. My teammate, solid finish in P15 for him, while I struggled back in P19. Of course, that first lap pit stop after my teammate fought and hit me twice, damaged my wing, forced me to pit early, as this is a very, very aerodynamic reliant track. And I have low aero in the first place, and then with that damage to the wing, I pitted immediately on lap 1. With those tires for that long of a time, I was never going to have the pace that I needed when I was already at the back of the grid at the time that I headed into the pits. I was within about 4 seconds of Van Dorn at one point as he came out of pit lane. So that means I lost about 9 seconds over the final 7 laps on worn super soft tires while he was on ultra softs. So that's not that bad, but it is 19th, so really it is that bad. Fernando Alonso, of course, with the DNF in 20th. And here we go. Final look at the standings for the year. Valtteri Bottas wins the Drivers' Championship over his teammate Lewis Hamilton by 3 points. Vettel overtakes Raikkonen by a single point on the final day for 3rd, with Ricciardo and Verstappen and the Red Bulls the next 2 on the grid. Best of the rest, both Renaults with Sainz and then Hülkenberg, and then the Haas of Grosjean. Everybody else 50 and below. Ocon, Alonso, and Perez, all pretty tight with each other. I come in, final standings, 29 points in my first season. Now, in terms of the gaming decathlon, if you watch any of my other games on the channel, I'm trying to master 10 games. Each one has a potential score of 1,000. My final score for Season 1, 277. We've got a long ways to go. Most of that is coming from points. If we look, Bottas won with 357. So that right there, that's another 330 points from what I had, and that was not dominant by any means. So a lot of the points come from there. A lot of it comes from the car upgrades. And while the chassis is looking real good, I've had nothing in aero, and I've had nothing in powertrain either. So just one reliability upgrade. So from that, I've got a long ways to go in the car upgrades, so there's a lot of points left out there. But 277 final total for the first season. But again, looking here, I do finish ahead of Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. He had a lot of DNFs this season. Leclerc for the Sauber did a pretty good job with 14 points, and Ericsson as well. Leclerc actually overtook Ericsson on the final day of the season. He was ahead all the way until Ericsson, I believe in the last race, picked up like 6 points. Van Dorn, final tally is just 6 points on the whole season, 40 points behind his teammate. And the Toro Rosso combined for the whole season, just 3 points. And my teammate, Sorokin, never did manage to get into the top 10. So that's a good sign for me that I was able to do what I did, especially with that AI difficulty level now, finishing Season 1 at 90, which is halfway to the maximum from where I started. I started at 70, I'm now at 90, and it maxes out at 110. Well, that's going to do it for this episode and this season. I'm Decathlon Gamer, and remember, I'm aiming for the best of the best. So if you're ready to join me on my journey, hit subscribe, and tune in next time on my road to the record. Bye for now.